What's going on, you guys? This is All1, and I'm going to be giving you guys another Ghost of Tsushima build video. So this build video I'm going to be giving you guys is going to be for the Assassin. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So let's go ahead and start off with the katanas. So the katana that I'm using is Masamune's Edge, and honestly, I started using this on pretty much all my characters, or almost all my characters for the most part, just because of the 20% chance to deal double damage. It's basically like you just look at this like crit chance. So if you don't hit that 20%, that's fine. You still do a lot of damage. But if you do hit it, that's 100% crit damage that you'll end up doing. It's doubling your damage. And then I put the water stance on it so that because the water stance to me personally is just better to run because of the surging strikes. It just hits a lot faster than all the other stances, and it seems like it hits harder in general. And then also, it's a 20% chance for each hit, not just one whole rotation. It's just literally each hit. So when you do surging strikes, that's what 5 different hits you're doing. So you're bound to hit at least one of those 5 hits is going to be the double damage. Now, what I ended up putting was melee resolve gain and Oni damage. Now, you don't necessarily have to go with Oni damage with this. You can actually go with ultimate damage if you wanted to do that, or if you want to focus more on stealth damage, you can go on stagger damage, because stagger damage affects all damage to enemies that are staggered. And if you run poison, you can actually just drain an enemy's stagger bar, and then just you'll end up doing a lot of damage to them in general. But for the most part, you don't have to run stagger damage. It is nice to run. If you do want to do more damage with your ultimate, then obviously you want to go with ultimate damage instead of the Oni damage. I went with Oni damage because I wanted to just have a higher base damage towards Onis, because they're just really annoying to fight. But for the most part, I mean, you can go one of the 3 different possible outcomes: ultimate damage, Oni damage, or stagger damage. Ability cooldown is also really nice to go with as well if you want to have your stealth back faster, but for the most part you don't really need to go with ability cooldown reduction. And then I have melee resolve gain. So melee resolve gain is actually really nice just because it's a universal stat. Well, pretty much both of these are. So my Masamune's Edge is a universal weapon in general. It's not just meant for the assassin. But melee resolve gain is really good because, one, you're going to be doing a lot of melee damage anyways, so it's nice to be able to build up your melee resolve, or your resolve, from doing melee attacks. Now, if you didn't want to use melee resolve gain because you don't think you really need it, then just go with melee damage or melee stagger damage, so that way you can actually, with a melee stagger damage, you're able to deplete the enemy's stagger bar pretty quick. So now for the ranged weapon. For the ranged weapon, I ended up using blowgun because I'm trying to maximize the amount of stealth damage I can do just in general on my assassin. But if you're not worried about having too much stealth damage, which, I mean, this can go up to 25% on stealth attack damage, which is a lot. But if you're not worried about it, then you could always run a bomb pack because you can have the assassin unlock perk on it, and you can have blast radius and status effect damage, or melee stagger damage, whichever perks you end up wanting to really use. But the only downfall about bomb pack is there's no stealth damage. So if you're trying to build stealth damage up, you're probably not going to want to go with bomb pack. You're more than likely want to go with blowgun, because like I said, you can have up to 25% on stealth attack damage. And then for the blowgun, I went with status effect duration and hallucination darts. The reason why is because, or the reason why you want to go with status effect duration is because you want to increase the duration of how long hallucinations last on your enemies. Since hallucination is considered a status effect, that's why you're going to want to use this. You don't really need to go with status effect damage because hallucination doesn't do any damage like fire would. And I think poison does as well, but it doesn't really seem like it does too much. Maybe the status effect damage would affect poison's damage towards enemy stagger bar, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. And then obviously you have stealth as the last one, which is a pretty nice possible outcome perk, but you really don't need it for the assassin because, I mean, this assassin utilizes a lot of different ways of being in stealth, so you don't, like I said, you don't really need stealth, but it isn't a bad perk to have. So there's going to be 2 different charms that I'm using. I have assassin charm and then another assassin charm, but the difference is the perks. This one has hysteria and this one has chain vanish. So for something like this week with the survival, or Nightmare Survival, it makes all enemies immune to status effects. So fire and hallucination, poison, weakening effects, all of that does not work against any of the enemies. So having Chain Vanish would actually be more useful in this situation. Chain Vanish in general is actually really good, just in for the most part, even in the story difficulty. For survival, like Nightmare Survival, Hysteria does um, perform better than Chain Vanish for the most part because it hallucinates all the enemies nearby. So all you have to do really is just drop a smoke, kill the weak or assassinate the weakest enemy, or really any enemy that it says assassinate for, as long as they're like within the middle of the pack of the enemies. And then you're just gonna be able to watch all the enemies' health bar turn purple, and then they'll start attacking each other. As long as you go back in your smoke, because they can still damage you, still focus on you and whatnot. They're not your allies. They're just not allies with their enemies, with your enemies anymore. But yeah, so for the perks, I went with stealth attack damage and Oni damage. You don't have to go with Oni damage. If you don't want to, you can actually go with ultimate damage as well if you're just trying to increase the amount of damage you want as much as possible. Damage increase, for those of you that don't know, only increases the ghost weapon damage. It does not increase your overall damage. So don't go with this if you're not planning on using any of your ghost weapons. I actually just wouldn't really run this in general because you're not going to be using ghost weapons that do damage anyways. You're going to be using this and dirt throw. I mean, you could technically still use the sticky bomb, but sticky bomb does have a longer cooldown than dirt throw. But yeah, you can either go with Oni damage or ultimate damage. If you go with ultimate damage on this and ultimate damage on your weapon, then that means your ultimate's obviously going to do a lot more damage, because right now the Ronin's, or not the Ronin, the Assassin's ultimate is definitely the weakest out of everyone's, but when you add the ultimate damage on both, it definitely does get a lot better because, I mean, obviously the ultimate damage, but you're able to actually do a lot of damage to enemies, especially the purple Onis with having this. It takes like 3 ultimate hits, 2 to 3 ultimate slashes or hits, whatever you want to call it, against the purple spearman Onis, which is really nice if you have the ultimate damage. Next up is going to be Ghost Weapon number 1. So for Ghost Weapon number 1, I'm using Dirt Throw. The reason why is because Dirt Throw is just really nice. It's a 40-second cooldown minus the 9.9% cooldown I have on it. You can go all the way down, or you can go all the way up to 15% cooldown reduction and down to 8.8%. And then you have cooldown reduction on kill. So you definitely want to have both of these for sure, just because, I mean, the less cooldown you have, just the base cooldown is better, and then being able to reduce the cooldown every kill, every assassination is really nice as well. And then you have Rancid. You can go with Rancid, Lucky, or Fired Up. They're all good perks to have. Rancid's nice because it just weakens the enemies, making them take 25% more damage and deal 25% less damage. If you go with Fired Up, then obviously they're just going to take fire damage, and it applies to enemies' health. So fire damage does do a nice amount of damage. And then Lucky is just nice to have, just because you can use multiple dirt throws if you get lucky. But you have other options, like you can have a kunai, not a spirit kunai because you won't be able to use it if you're using the Masamune's Edge. But if you're not using Masamune's Edge, then you can technically still run a spirit kunai, which isn't a bad option because of the fact that you will be able to get your cooldown reduced by 15 seconds, which is going to be really nice. But the only thing is, you're not going to have a lot of damage with your Spirit Kunai, because unlike the Ronin, you don't get the Ghost Weapon damage on your technique. But it's still not a bad option. And then you can also go with Lady Sanjo's Surprise if you're going with the like a hallucination build. So hallucination build, having that 15% chance to hallucinate an enemy while they're within a group, like it's still a really nice option to go with. And then you have a sticky bomb, but like I said, sticky bomb is 2 times longer than a dirt throw. It's 90 seconds, whereas the dirt throw is 40 seconds. So for me personally, I wouldn't worry about using sticky bomb, but it does a nice amount of damage. But yeah, the last thing is going to be your ghost weapon number 2. So for ghost weapon number 2, I went with smoke bomb, and the reason why is because you're a stealth character, and smoke bomb gives you stealth damage. Unlike the ghost weapon number 1, that one does not give you any stealth damage in any perks. You don't get it in dirt throw, you can't get it in spirit kunai, and you can't get it in sticky bomb. I'm pretty sure you can't get it in the spirit kunai. Yeah, no, there's no No stealth damage in any of those ghost weapon number ones. But Smoke Bomb does allow you to get stealth attack damage, which is really nice. I ended up getting really lucky with mine with 25% stealth attack damage. Came with 12.3 stealth, but it would have been better. Obviously, it would have been way better if it came with cooldown reduction like this one. But this one is a 17.8% stealth attack damage, so I just didn't worry about it too much. Just kept this one on. Demon Seeds or just Caltrops, and then you have Healing Gourd and Kenji Shared Brew. They're good, but they're not great, and you won't be able to benefit from the stealth attack damage. Now, Kenji Shared Brew is still a good option to run with if you want to be able to heal yourself and your team. And if you do end up using it, I would definitely run Strong Brew, so that way you can heal 50% more for you and your team. And then make sure you run like Injured Resolve gain so you can build up your Resolve, and then probably damage reduction as well, so that way you can also get the obviously damage reduction in general. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys have those pieces, and if you do, then you're almost there with your assassin. So now we're going to go over the techniques. So you have two options on your class ability. You have Toxic Vanish and Group Vanish. Toxic Vanish is 12 seconds longer than Group Vanish is, but Toxic Vanish does allow you to stagger your enemies just because of the fact that it'll apply poison to them. And then when enemies are staggered, you technically just do more damage, as everyone does more damage to enemies that are staggered in general. Because a stagger bar is kind of like an enemy's armor bar, or armor break, or whatever you want to call it, a guard. But once that guard or that stagger bar is gone, you you just do more damage. So your assassinations will do more damage, or your crits will do more damage. And then Group Vanish is nice because it's just nice for the group. It can come in as a safety net for your allies if you guys need to run away or just hide or something. Or if there's like four enemies and there's four of you, if all four of you just pick an enemy and assassinate them all, then obviously that's going to be really good. Now, Group Vanish is, like I said, it is 12 seconds faster, so it will come back faster. So it can be useful just for yourself as well, in a sense, because of the faster cooldown. Now for perk number one on your techniques, you have Critical Hit, Super Strike, and Assassin Unleashed. Assassin Unleashed is not a terrible perk to go with because of the fact that it is a 15% cooldown for your abilities for both of these, which is going to be really nice. But the thing is, it's better to just stack ability cooldown on your weapon, charm, and this if you really want to maximize the amount of ability cooldown you can get. You don't want to just go with this because it's not going to be by much. It's not going to decrease it by much. But I think it's going to go down from 50 seconds to like 44 or something. I don't know. I'm just guessing right now, but somewhere in the 40s. So to me, it's really not worth it too much at the moment, unless, like I said, if you do end up running multiple ability cooldowns from your weapon and your charm. And now you have Super Strike and Critical Hit. I went with Super Strike because it's a multiplier of your base, not your base stealth damage, but all of your stealth attack damage all put together. It's just doubling all of that. So it just makes it easier to do a lot of damage to like the Purple Oni Spearmen. Since they have a lot of health, all you have to do is really just go to stealth and then just use the Super Strike. Obviously, if they can be affected by poison or stagger, make sure they're staggered first and then use the Super Strike, so that way you can pretty much get a guaranteed kill on them. And then Critical Hit, it's nice because it just turns your crit strikes up a lot by 30%, making it to where you can you can assassinate enemies easier versus going for a critical strike all the time. For perk number two on your technique, you have Experienced Assassin, Light Step, and Opportunist. Now, Opportunist is definitely a really good perk to go with because it's a 50% bonus assassination damage to staggered enemies. But when you go against enemies in this week's Nightmare Survival, they're immune to poison. They're immune to just all of that. They're not immune to being staggered, but immune to poison. And if you try to stagger an enemy, there's pretty much no point in going with this because by the time you get them staggered, they're going to be low on health, or you're just not going to be able to do any assassinations on them unless you save your smoke for after you stagger them. But for the most part, this is definitely one of the best perks to go with on the assassination, if not the best perk to go with if you really want to maximize the amount of stealth damage you can do. Light Step, I'm not worried about it because, I mean, it's nothing too crazy. I mean, yeah, it's nice to run around silent, but I don't think you need this. And then you have experienced assassin. So experienced assassin is actually really, it comes in clutch a lot, especially when you're doing survival on nightmare, and then you have a bunch of the watches just spamming arrows at you all the time. Having this assassination, like quick assassination, is really good. You just get a quick assassination and roll out. The only downfall about it is if you go for a critical strike, it's still the same duration as if you didn't have the experienced assassin, which is a little unfortunate. It'd be really nice if crit strikes were also affected by this, cutting um, the I guess animation in half just by 50%. You know, like the experienced assassin, it just a quick crit strike would be really nice. Now for the third perk, you have Shadow Storm, Chain Vanish, and Legendary. Legendary is not something I would go with, so just completely cross this out. It's not worth running to me. It's kind of it hurts your build more than helps it in a sense, unless you know the legendaries are really good. I mean, like they really alter your builds. But Chain Vanish and Shadow Storm are both really good to go with. You can go with Chain Vanish even if you have Chain Vanish as on your charm, on your assassination charm, because or your assassin charm because it stacks with each other. So instead of being able to just Chain Vanish from 2 enemies, you can Chain Vanish from 3 enemies, which is still really nice because I mean you can kill 3 out of the 4 enemies while being in stealth, and then you can just go into using a smoke bomb and kill whatever enemies are remaining. Shadowstorm is also really good, but I would only really use this if you are mainly using like an ult build. Like if you stacked ultimate damage on your sword or your katana and your charm, then I'd probably go with Shadowstorm so you can maximize the amount of ultimate damage you can really do on your enemies. So that's pretty much it for this build video. If it helped you guys out, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section and I'll try my best to help you guys out to the best of my ability. If you have any suggestions on what else you would normally run on a assassin, let me know down in the comments as well and I'll definitely look into it, and I'm always down to alter my builds and whatnot, making future updated build videos and stuff for people. Because I do have other builds that I'm using on other characters as well that I technically updated, like on my hunter and my samurai. My Ronin's still the same, but my hunter and samurai kind of changed a little bit, not too much. They're still using the main thing, like obviously the skipping stone bow, still the main use, and the dirt throw, smoke bomb, range charm, water katana, all that is still the same, but it's just a few perks that are a little different. Whoops. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm always down to hear suggestions and open for opinions. But yeah, if this helped you guys out, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. This is all day one. Have a good day, good night, and peace.